Yes. Welcome to another edition of Go Long Live. I am your host, Barry Long, the second, not the first, not the third. I am the second. We are live on CoachellaValley.com. We are live all over the metaverse, all over the universe. We are live on today's Canada.com as well as today's California.com, CoachellaValley.com. We thank you for tuning in. We appreciate everybody for liking the show, everybody for commenting on the show. Please comment. We will read your comments live. Like I said, we will. Quick little technical difficulty. We apologize for that, but we are live on CoachellaValley.com. We are live on today's California.com. We are live on today's Canada.com. We had a crazy week 18. Okay, we've had a lot of teams that were not able to get into the playoffs. We had teams that were able to get into the playoffs. We will talk about the Ravens losing to the Steelers. We'll talk about the 49ers being able to defeat the Rams. We will also talk about the crazy game that we had on Sunday night between the Raiders and the Chargers. Real quick before we start the show, I want to say rest in peace to Bob Saget. Very sad news coming out of the Hollywood world. We found out that Bob Saget, who was famous for being Danny Tanner on Full House, he passed away tragically in his hotel room at the age of 65. It seems that we lost a lot of good ones recently. We lost Betty White. That was a big part of my childhood, watching Golden Girls growing up. We lost her recently. We lost John Madden, who's a big part of our childhood, just a big part of popular culture, American culture. So, now we've lost Bob Saget. But without any further ado, let me bring in my main man, Rudy Reyes. Rudy, how are you doing, Mr. Ramon Reyes, Mr. Steeler fan?
Happy about last night. Yesterday rather instead of last night. Last night made me scratch my head, kind of wondering what's going on and what Stanley was thinking. It's all about the stale cracker. In regards to that was absolutely horrible. But
stale cracker, is that what you
it's
call
a stale cracker, stale. Same difference, because that's really the kind of game plan that he called in the fourth quarter. It was absolutely horrible. But you mentioned Uncle Danny. Saget was just absolutely fantastic. What he was doing in a hotel room, I don't want to know. But great guy, certain part of Americana, rather, with Betty White. You had mentioned the great John Madden, which kind of inspired me to get into broadcasting McGill when I heard him. And all he had to say was "boom," and that was it. You knew who he was. The minute you heard that, you knew who he was. You know what he was talking about. But there's so many sad departures this year, and it just started.
Yeah, such a sad start to 2022. Man, I watched probably every episode of Full House, every episode of Golden Girls. Played every Madden since the 90s, so it's just a sad. It seems like the deaths come in threes. That's what they always say, and just sad that Danny Tanner died. But let's talk about this game last night. All right, let's start with this one. We'll get into the Ravens Steelers. You are a Steelers fan. I'm a Ravens fan. That game went down to the wire. People were biting their nails. I know I certainly was. Even after the Steelers won the game, the big game last night was the Raiders and the Chargers, man. And the Raiders, of course. We know that they were able to defeat the Chargers in overtime. Now this game went down to the wire. The Raiders had a lead. The Chargers ended up coming back on some incredible throws by Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert played absolutely phenomenal late in that game last night. I believe they converted 6 fourth down plays, which they were the first team in 30 years to do that. Herbert was 34-64. He threw for 383 yards, 3 big touchdowns. Big touchdown at the end to tie the game up. 1 interception. But Mike Williams was huge too. 9 catches for 119 yards. But the story of the game ended up being Brandon Staley and his management of the clock. This guy has been criticized all year long for being so ballsy on fourth down. He's gone from fourth down a lot. Now, they were able to convert a lot yesterday, but it's gotten them trouble. It's gotten them a lot of criticism over the past few weeks. But he calls a timeout late in that game when the Raiders are driving. It seems like the Raiders are going to just run the clock out. We know that if both teams tie, both teams get in the playoffs. So it seemed like they both were consensual, like, hey, we're gonna go in the playoffs together. And then Brandon Staley calls a timeout, stops the clock. And then, of course, it seems like the Raiders may have changed their mindset. They've become a little bit more aggressive on that next play, on that third and fourth down. or that 3rd down and 4, and they ended up getting a first down, and then they ended up going for the field goal and winning the game. Now, a lot of people are mad at Brandon Staley this morning. How are you feeling about Brandon Staley?
The guy uses analytics for everything, including how many squares he uses, but that's not the point. The point is that he's been hiding behind the analytical number the entire season, especially on 3rd and longs, 4th and long, even 4th and shorts. Last night it was the Herbert to Williams show. It was more about putting so much on Justin Herbert, not to suggest that he couldn't do it, not to suggest that he can't get it done, because he's proved that time and time again that he's been able to do that consistently throughout the entire season. Staley needs to be looked at, and the GM needs to have a conversation with him and ask him, look, are you going to do this consistently? Because we can't continue having this type of heartbreak. Now, on the other side of the coin, the Raiders were marching down the field. It was about these dumb penalties. Some were ticky-tack. There was one face mask that was missed that was not called. It was blatant. Even a blind mouse on the sideline could see that face mask, okay, including myself. And it was called out. How is that not a face? Well, it was a face mask. It just wasn't called. But the bottom line is that when you look at the Chargers, they're so evenly matched, and they have such offensive and defensive efficiencies similar to that of the Las Vegas Raiders. They know each other very well. They play each other every single year, multiple times. So it's not as if they don't know what the other one is doing. But I think the bottom line of this, at the end of it all, it was about the Oakland Raiders not wanting to face the Chargers because they could get the better of them as they had in the regular season into postseason. They didn't want to carry that over. That's the only reason why Las Vegas went for that last-minute field goal attempt, which was absolute money right down the middle. But this is more about Staley. It's more about clock management, personnel packages, not getting behind in the sticks, using analytics as this hidden weapon, and I understand he's wearing a mask, but the mask of analytics can only go so far. And, this is Black Monday in the NFL when it comes to coaches, the carousels that are ensuing, just so much to unwrap. And, the bottom line is I feel very, very sad to see these organizations that go through head coaches like the Miami Dolphins, who've gone through head coaches in the last 5 years. It's just very consistent, organizationally speaking, not very good, not sound football, sends a wrong message to the locker room, and unfortunately that carries over year after year after year. If the Miami Dolphins want a yes guy, they may as well hire somebody who's not head coaching material, because they're going to nod their head yes to everything that the GM and owner wants them to do.
And we're going to talk about Miami here shortly. We're going to talk about Black Monday. We had some coaches that were fired, Brian Flores being one of them. That was a surprise out of the football world. But yeah, Brandon Staley certainly is not on the hot seat. But if he does not manage this team down the stretch the way that he did this year, if he does this next year, I could easily see him being on the hot seat, especially the way that he is so aggressive on 4th down. And like you mentioned, all the analytics and the issues that come with that. Now, let's talk about the Raiders. The Raiders are a pretty good team. They've been through a lot this season. They started it with the John Gruden. Started with the John Gruden emails. Then you got the Henry Ruggs situation. You've got the really good corner that they had, Arnett, that was supposed to be a star, one of their star cornerbacks up and coming. He goes on IG Live with the guns, the 3 different guns, and he gets nixed from the team. They have John Madden pass away tragically. They just had a lot of stuff that Derek Carr has been through, and it seems like he's been able to compartmentalize, and it seems like he's been able to overcome all of the adversity that he's had this season. Do you think that this team has a really good shot in the playoffs?
Derek Carr is one of those guys who completely is enjoying this moment, and very well, he's very well should. And there's a lot of reasons why he should. A lot of reasons why this team needs to pat themselves on the back through all the adversities and issues that you mentioned that they've gone through throughout this entire season. Will it carry over to next year? One can only hope it does not. But I think when you look at what job has been done by the interim head coach over what John Gruden was contending with, these two teams couldn't be more night and day than what you had seen in the first half of the season, first quarter of the season with John Gruden under. But I think knowing that Derek comes from Fresno State, he's a Bulldog, born and bred here in the area where I'm at.
Shout out to Fresno.
Yeah, well, hey, man, if that's what puts us on the map, then so be it.
Derek Carr,
California's a big,
the pride of
big
Fresno.
place. Yeah, just go apply to Cal State Fresno, where I'll be transferring eventually. But no, I mean, I'll put it this way, and I'll put this as much in the minutia as possible. If he was to not win this game,
this is the second time you use that word minutia. I like that. I like that word. Shout out to you. All right, go ahead. My bad.
hashtag minutia.
That's your word. That's gonna be your word, man. Minutia.
Mr. Minutia. It's always in the weeds.
Mr. Minutia. All right, go ahead, Rudy.
So when good notation. So when you look at what this means to the franchise as a whole, this is the first time the Raiders have been in this situation since the snow game against the New England Patriots. So They have fought a very long time. And I'm sure Charles Woodson somewhere is shaking his head like, that's right. I had Charles Woodson on the Root Dog Show, and he was just ecstatic. We talked about that play, and he just could not believe it. He was very ecstatic. Even still, to this day, he cannot believe that was not a fumble. But It is what it is. This is where they're at. I think the Raiders have a little bit a way to go when it comes to personnel groupings and packages, things of that nature. But you got to talk about Max Crosby. The guy is an absolute beast. Went from an alcoholic background in rehab, sleeping in his car, to now going to his first Pro Bowl and making such an impact on every single play for the Las Vegas Raiders. It just makes you wonder what's next for this guy. Another Pro Bowl, maybe a Super Bowl now before the end of the year. Who knows? There's still tons of football to be played, especially if you're in the playoff circuit. If you're not, well, that old adage comes true. There's always next year.
Yeah, and I love Max Crosby. He actually is number 2 to Aaron Donald in quarterback pressures this season. And yeah, like you said, alcoholic background, sleeping in his car, an incredible story. We just love incredible stories. The Raiders, they find themselves in a pretty tough matchup coming up this weekend. They find themselves up against the Bengals on Saturday. That should be an interesting game. I cannot wait to watch Joe Burrow go up against that defense. But such an incredible story. You're right. Now let's get to, before we get into the Black Monday and the coaches that were being fired, let's get into the Steelers-Raiders game. The Steelers-Ravens went down to the wire. We talked about it on Friday that these games typically go down to the wire. They're 10-13, 13-13 is what we got at the end of regulation. We saw overtime. Tyler Huntley was unable to take this team and really put him on his back. He played okay, but he did have 2 costly turnovers. He had one that was in the red zone that was, just a bonehead play, just a cringeworthy play. But Big Ben Roethlisberger couldn't have ended more perfectly for him. In the cold rain, the cold Baltimore rain, it ends up going into overtime. And what ends up happening, they go down, they put themselves in a position to kick a game-winning field goal, and they do. They win 16-13. And you, as a Steelers fan, biting your nails at the end of last. Go ahead, man. How do you feel about the game, man? Congratulations. Kudos to you guys.
I did not. I didn't think they were going to get in.
I didn't mind losing yesterday. I didn't mind losing.
I did not think they were going to get in, to be honest with you. There are teams that have put themselves in positions to be, teams that prevent them from getting into postseason, but somehow Steelers continue to find a way with Ben Roethlisberger under center. The running game was not really working for them. This is a very defensive game, as they always are against the Ravens and the Steelers. There's a lot of things I'd like to unpack. We don't have the time for that, but I'll say this. Ravens put up a huge fight. AFC North football. They both laid it on the lines. That's what it's about. One of the toughest divisions in all of the NFL, if not all in sports. Mm-hmm. And hats off to the Ravens for fighting through adversities, fighting through the injuries, the COVID list, which is ever surmounting by every single team. And of course, hopefully, those players that are now not in the offseason, and my condolences to you guys and all that business. Yeah. Don't go off and get COVID, okay? Just because there's no game to report to the next day doesn't mean you go off and get COVID. But no, it was a fantastic game. Chris Boswell comes through in the clutch like he has all season long. There's been a couple questionable decisions by him, a little Nick here and there, but for the most part, he got it done. Typical AFC North football. Steelers got it done, but they move on and face a very hardcore challenge going into Arrowhead, which is the biggest challenge of all. Secondly, facing the Kansas City Chiefs. Now,
who are firing on all cylinders right now.
who are really playing hot. You're absolutely right. They're playing. They are on point. Patrick Mahomes has already got a ring. Travis Kelce. They're just playing their best football, and it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And right now this is far from over by any means, but playing in Kansas City, that's a whole nother animal. Well, we're definitely going to see what's
and we're going to break
this
down that
team's made
game.
of.
We're going to break down that game coming up here, throughout the week. But let's talk about the Ravens real quick. The Ravens had so much adversity all season long. And my son, when I got home, he was just devastated. He was just, because they had so many stipulations. We needed the Dolphins to beat the Patriots, which they ended up doing. We needed the Jaguars to beat the Colts. There's no way in the hell the Jaguars are going to beat the Colts. Well, hell froze over yesterday. They did. Pigs flew, whatever you want to say. It happened. And then the Ravens wet the bed. But I told them, even if we did get in, we still had Lamar Jackson, who was hobbled, whether it was a bone bruise or a high ankle sprain. Didn't look like he was probably going to play in the playoff game if we got to the playoffs. We didn't have our horses, didn't have our leading quarterbacks, didn't have our leading running backs that we started the season with. Latavius Murray had a great game. But it's just been a rough season. And it didn't feel like we were going to make it to the playoffs regardless. So, we'll be back next year. But incredible season by the Ravens and John Harbaugh to fight through so much adversity and to still have a chance in Week 18. But with that being said, I would like to bring in my guy. He's been on the show, friend of the show. He's been all over NFL Network, all over ESPN, all over the commercials. If you live in the Baltimore area, then you definitely have seen his billboards. You've seen him on TV. You've seen him everywhere. My man, Captain Defense, joins us live. He is the Ravens super fan. Captain Defense, I had to have you on, man, to talk about our Ravens. It was a rough one yesterday.
Yes.
How did you feel watching that game? And talk to us a little bit about what Big Roethlisberger means. Him leaving.
Well, first thing, I'm still thawing out from in that cold rain out there yesterday.
You were out there, yeah. You were out there.
Yes, I'm okay. But it was a good game. It was a microcosm of our season. We lost to the Packers, the Rams, and the Steelers by a total of 5 points. Right. The last 4 times we got in the red zone, we didn't score. But you know what? I look forward to next season because we had a lot of guys, a lot of injuries, and I don't like to use injuries as an excuse. That's just part of the game, COVID-19. But what happened is, Henley is basically a rookie quarterback. That play to Mark Andrews, he threw it right to the defender in the end zone. I mean, he forced it in there. And the fumble, he should have just jumped on it instead of trying to pick it up. But those are learning tools he can take forward. And like I said, we got a lot of injuries. J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and Marlon Humphrey and Mark Peters. There's 2 or 3 wins right there.
Absolutely.
But we've been close to every game. And also the fact that we got one of the 30th ranked passing defense, but we were able to hang into these games because we got a pretty good running defense. But I'm looking forward to next season, and I'm really excited to see Lamar come back. But we need to give Hundley an extension because I think he's a pretty good backup, and he can come in. And I think next year he's going to be a pretty good backup. And the score of the game is what I've been a Ravens season since '96. It always comes to that: who's going to make a play, whether defense or offense. And the story of the season is when we needed somebody to make a play on defense, it didn't come up. When we need somebody to make a play on offense, they didn't make the play. So that was the microcosm of our whole season. But congratulations to the Steelers. They won the game, and like I said, I don't use injuries and COVID excuses. That's just what it is.
You see the cup. You see the Steelers cup. Rudy Reyes. Right. He's a Steelers fan.
It was a really great game. It's what I expected.
Right.
These two teams they've had rivalry games that were just absolutely knocked down, drag out, old school feel. They used to be Steelers and Browns, but that just went by the wayside. But I think every single game in the AFC North is always going to have its level of intensity that doesn't carry over into other AFC or even NFC games for that matter. We watched this Eagles-Cowboys game. That was disgusting because there was no love lost there, but still it wasn't like an AFC North game. So, I think to your point about Hundley, I love his play style. I love him being able to step in the pocket, making those throws. They need to be a lot more decisive. There needs to be a little bit more offensive creativity.
Right.
That guy, Mark Andrews, is a beast.
Yes,
absolute beast. He caught those balls when I did not think he could.
Right.
Okay, he reached up and he's like a one-hander, right? He's what you call a Swiss Army knife, and that's the kind of guy that Heath Miller was to Pittsburgh when he was
always trying to relate everything back to the Steelers,
but
just like a typical Steelers fan.
Well, okay, but these teams all mirror one another in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
Because of familiarity, offensively, defensively, play calling, creativity. It goes basically across the board. So now, you know what? There's always next year.
Yeah, now there's always next year. Now, Captain Defense, real quick. Tell us what what playing against Ben Roethlisberger and what he meant to that rivalry. As much as we hate him, we also have to love to hate him. And he just talked to us a little bit, being a Ravens super fan, what it meant to always have Big Ben on the other side of the football.
Well, it's kind of like in life. There's a lot of people I don't like, but I can respect what they do. Mm-hmm. Ben has broken my heart before, but I was there at the first game he started, and I was there at the last game. Awesome. And the Steeler rivalry and Ben, they always take us down to the wire, and it's a competitive game. And Suggs being out there yesterday wasn't a coincidence, because Suggs and Ben had their battles along with Ray Lewis. So it was a great rivalry, and it was always fun of Ben. And like I say, he left it all on the line, and I always respect him and Mike Tomlin, and I respect the Steelers fan because they travel well. In fact, I ran into thousands of them yesterday.
And Suggs was there, Ray Rice was there. Suggs, he done lost a lot of weight. He been on that keto diet, right?
Right. but I don't know what they're going to do after Ben. We don't fear Mason Rudolph. I can tell you that.
Or Dwayne Haskins.
Or Dwayne Haskins. But it was a great fun. It was a great rivalry, and it was fun times. AFC North football, and to that thing, a Cincinnati Bengal fan, where he wants to talk trash. I said, look, I realize you haven't been there before. The playoff is not like the regular season. It's one and done.
Yeah.
And, and some people can handle the limelight and some people can. But, I appreciate the Cincinnati Bengals, and congratulations on the Steelers for making the playoffs and another team from the AFC North. So I'm not mad.
Absolutely. Well, Captain Defense, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you for having us on the show.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, take care. Thanks.
All nice right, so guy. Man, he's awesome, man. He's been on the NFL Network. He's on the commercial. He's just awesome, man. But I love Wes and Captain Defense, man. It's definitely a Ravens super fan. We're gonna have him on anytime we have any Ravens news. But real quick, let's talk about the Colts. The Colts choked to the Jaguars. They lost 26-11. They had a chance to do this. They had a chance to win and get in, and they're playing against the Jaguars, who have an interim head coach. We know what kind of dumpster fire they've been. They've been basura, is what I like to say, trash, garbage, all season long. And they put up a pretty good performance yesterday, but really the story of the day was that Carson Wentz just played terrible, and he made bad decisions with the football. Threw his first interception on the road yesterday, which was a terrible interception when he should have just checked down to the running back. He fumbled the ball in the other team's red zone. So they kept continuously giving the Jaguars short field after short field, and it was just a tough day. What do you think about the Colts and Carson Wentz?
Well, like I said via text, I don't know if they choked on a chicken bone or if they choked on a horseshoe. The jury's out on this. I don't even need a horseshoe wrapped inside of your neck, but it sure was around their neck. Yeah, they basically did to themselves via Carson Wentz. The sad part is that Carson Wentz was a guy who was supposed to, and I don't mean this in any other way other than he wasn't supposed to be their savant. He was designed to just be a game manager. That's what he was hired to do. Of course, the whole Andrew Luck thing went down to the wire, where he ultimately said, you know what, I'm done. I'm tired of getting hit, tired of getting beat up. I'm done and over with. And then they tried a couple guys here and there. Didn't quite work out with Jacoby Brissett and so on. Carson Wentz is still not that guy. I'll be honest with you. He's just not that guy. Very indecisive, not extremely athletic. He doesn't have great wheels on him. This is just basically them shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, Michael Pittman had one touchdown, averaged like 10 yards per catch. There wasn't any other highlight reel off this team. Well, you could see the numbers, 26-11. I mean, it was Jacksonville just sticking it too. Now, don't forget, Jacksonville's been in complete disarray since that Urban Meyer firing. So it's not as if they hadn't faced their own adversity. We're talking about John Gruden departing from the Las Vegas Raiders as well. Affects the locker room, affects the mentality. But when they needed to pull it out, they did.
Yeah,
so
and Trevor Lawrence played amazing yesterday. Trevor Lawrence played fantastic yesterday. He had like 233 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had one amazing play on the snap over his head where he had to make the play and threw just a bullet to Marvin Jones Jr. But yeah, he did. Trevor Lawrence looked okay yesterday. I mean, I think that they got something there.
Yeah, definitely surprised. He needs an offensive line. He needs more offensive weaponry, to say the least. They need to get a little bit more creative on the offense with play action, with some double pump fakes, things of that nature. Things he's going to learn. It's not a steep learning curve because he's a very smart guy. And not only from that standpoint, but he is a baller. And when you put him in a situation where his back's against the wall, he's going to shine. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, and they're going to have to figure out who is going to be a good head coach that's going to really be able to guide him and help him progress and become that the best prospect that we've ever seen in college football. But we had some other coaches that were some other teams that are going to need head coaches, and we saw, of course, we already assumed that Matt Nagy would be fired and Ryan Pace, the GM. We assumed that Spielman, the GM of the Vikings, would be fired, as well as Mike Zimmer. He was let go. But Brian Flores is one that really shocked me when I saw it come across, because we know that they started off the season 1-7, the Miami Dolphins, and then they went on a 7-game winning streak, and they finished the season strong, winning the game against the Patriots 22-13 yesterday. So you felt like Brian Flores was safe. Some people even thought that Brian Flores was a candidate for Coach of the Year because of the 7-game winning streak, but he was let go. Were there any big shockers to you, and what were your takeaways from Black Monday?
There was no shockers whatsoever. These were anticipated. They were expected.
Even Brian Flores?
Brian Flores was a guy. Look, I understand he went on a 7-game winning streak. There's nothing wrong with that. It speaks a lot to his resume. It speaks a lot about his ability to fight through their own issues, as a club, offensively, lack of personnel, COVID list, all those things. I mean, heck, you may as well just hand out 32 Coach of the Year trophies to every single coach in the NFL, because they all had to deal with COVID. They all had to deal with personnel and starters being out due to COVID and injuries and IR and ACLs. I mean, never put me in a GM spot or a head coaching spot, because it's not going to happen. I don't want that job to save my life, especially not in Miami. But as I mentioned from the onset of the show, what they're looking for is they want someone, and it's not Brian Flores, unfortunately, to his point. I just think they want someone who's going to agree in their head, along with the general manager, saying yes sir, no sir, yes sir, no sir. It doesn't work that way. Head coaches have their own identity, and predominantly they bring in their own general manager, and vice versa, because they're a friend of a friend of a friend, and that's usually how head coaches become head coaches, is because of the coaching trees. Records have a lot to do with it. Matt Nagy, obviously horrible, 34-33 was his record. Zimmer, no big difference as well. Been to the AFC Championship game, won an NFC playoff game once, a divisional game. So it's not as if has anything to his record to speak of that would make him be that guy moving forward for the Minnesota Vikings. He's 3 years removed. Matt Nagy should have never got the head coaching position. And of course, everybody expected Vic Fangio to stick around one more year because of ownership. Mm-hmm. Ownership was not, it's not settled yet, but Payton said, you know what? We got to make a change. We got to make a change. And that change started with Vic Fangio. And unfortunately, that's what happened. All three of them are gone, OC, DC, and the head coach. So yeah, I think the Broncos are in the worst shape out of all the NFL teams that have done the Black Monday firing. And
they got to figure out their quarterback position too.
That quarterback position's not up for grabs. But I'll tell you what, when I looked at Drew Lock, some of the throws he didn't really step into, but I really think that Drew Lock just needs to work a little bit more on the mechanics. Yeah, I understand he's headed into year 4. He's not getting any younger. He's getting older, but he's getting more reps. And I think as long as somebody else other than Pat Shurmur calling the offensive plays, you're going to
Yeah.
find him in a lot better waters offensively. You're talking about personnel groupings, packages, understanding checkdowns. Quarterback coach obviously probably needs to do a little bit better in regards to Drew Lock and preparation for games moving forward. We'll see how that rolls out. The draft is
now. Which job do you think out there? Which job do you think out there is the best head coaching job that's available right now?
Oh man,
what's the best position? Because I mean, you've got because basically you want to make sure you have a good quarterback, right?
There isn't.
And
if you want the most challenging, it's going to be
there really isn't
no.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing good out there. Are you kidding me? It's like, what do you want?
There's nothing
KFC?
Good right now, right?
Or you want Canes or KFC? What are we talking about here? But no, there really isn't anything great out there right now. I must say, as far as from an organization standpoint, I mean, Gettleman decided to retire finally. He's won, 2 out of 3.
He retired
Super Bowl, so he retired. He retired before he actually retired. But they have a Joe Judge decision going on in New York. And ultimately fired, or he fired himself, one or the other.
Refired. Yeah, he refired and
refried, or however you want to call it. He's done. So honestly, I don't think there's any situation out there that's right for any head coach, from whether it's personnel, whether it's lack of personnel, whether it's getting that. Now you have to bring in your own OC. You have to bring your own DC. You have to do all these mix and match types of things. They should call in some guys like I'll drop a name right now. Wade Phillips, perfect guy for a head coaching job.
Okay.
I don't even think he wants a job right now in the NFL, but if there was one that he was challenged with, that he may be able to do something with, and that defense is going to be Jacksonville.
Wade Phillips. I like Byron Leftwich to Jacksonville because he played there. And he's been, he's been the offensive coordinator of a top 3 offense the last 3 seasons, 2 with Tom Brady, 1 with Jameis Winston. So I think that he's familiar with that area, with that franchise. But yeah, Wade Phillips, he's a candidate.
Eric Bieniemy is a name that's constantly dropped out, but he's no one's enemy. He's everybody's friend. So
Eric the frenemy.
He's all about the frenemy right now. I think that if there's any organization that needs a guy like him, and I don't mean to say that the quarterback in position in Minnesota is the guy, because I don't think that he is. I think Eric Bieniemy would be a great fit in Minnesota.
Absolutely, man. I could easily see him up there. All right, now real quick, we will break down some more of these matchups and some more of these games that we saw yesterday. We'll break them up. We'll break them down tomorrow. But real quick, we got a national championship on our hands tonight, the college football national championship. We got Alabama versus Georgia. Who do you have and why? We saw this game before. Alabama, Georgia was riding high. Alabama.
It's a Pete and repeat show is what it boils down to.
Alabama wiped the floor with them.
Yeah, they did. Yes, they did. They certainly did. But this is a slightly different Georgia defense than we had seen in the SEC title game. I just think that Young's got to be a lot more decisive with the ball and get rid of that ball a lot faster, because even though they faced him in the SEC game, there's still going to be defensive play packages that he hasn't seen yet that are going to be brought to his front door. And unless he gets rid of that ball, it's going to be disaster for that Alabama line. And obviously for Bryce Young, as he's find himself on the grass a lot more often than he'd like. I gotta go. I gotta go with Bama. I gotta take Bama. They've been so good for so long. Nick Saban is an absolute genius when it comes to getting guys to play for one another, to play for the organization, albeit Alabama Roll Tide. I'm going to say this is like a 23-17 win.
Yeah, I'm rolling with Bama as well. I'm going to go a bit bigger. I'm going to say like 28-13. I feel like Georgia, their formula is running the ball, playing really good defense, and they do have a really stout defense. But when they were up against Alabama last time, they just looked like they were not even in the same class. And Bryce Young, his ability to get out of sacks and get his body in the right positions to make throws, even if he throws it away, he's still making plays. I just feel like Alabama has too much. And Nick Saban's going to have those boys ready. And, as much as I root for Kirby Smart and Stetson Bennett, what a great story for him being a walk-on to being where he's at right now. He's got the JT Daniels over his shoulder. I just feel like, at the end of the day, the game will be close, but Alabama will pull away, and I'm going 28-13 Alabama. All right, man. Rudy Reyes, real quick. It's been fun, man. Man, I wish we had an hour.
Yeah, me too.
You hear that, Craig?
You and me both. You and me both. Yeah, come on, Craig. Give us an hour.
Shout out to Craig Campbell.
Give us an hour. An hour is all we need. No, you can find me on the RudeDogShow.com. Go throw me a follow on Twitter at RudeDogReyes. And, like it, love it, never leave it, because you're going to come back more for it. So.
Absolutely. And you can find me on Twitter at Radio Barry Long. I'm on IG at BarryLong_2. On Facebook at BarryLong_II. Remember, stay focused, stay motivated, stay inspired. And remember, you're capable of doing anything, so go out and do it. Watch some college football tonight. It's going to be a doozy of a game. We will break it down tomorrow. We'll also talk some more about these NFL matchups that we got coming up for Wild Card Weekend. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it, and we'll see you later. Peace.